Arg. I just had a lovely 15-minute video explaining all of this, showing you exactly how to make it. And I somehow lost it before I uploaded it. So here we go again. This one will be shorter because everything is already done. But what we are going to do is we're going to take the information that you gathered last week from the part of the text of Arctic Lights and Arctic Nights that was something you would have ignored otherwise had we not looked at how it was organized. We pulled out the hours and minutes of daylight on each month in Alaska. Remember, this is Arctic Lights and Arctic Nights. Organized it in this chart. You will need this chart, but we are going to turn this chart into a line graph. And so I will show you very quickly, starting over, a couple of things. First of all, you want to go over in the corner and put your name, and you can't see that. You need to do not the first line, but the second line down. You need to leave yourself a space for a title. Then you need to count 6 lines in from the left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The reason I know you need to count 6 lines in is because I've already done it, and I know where we are headed later this week. You need to trace this axis. Now, the axis just means a starting point, and you don't want to go all the way to the bottom because you'll need another axis in this direction. So we need to also leave 6 lines blank from the bottom. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's on that 6th line, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that we will trace the axis going in this direction. So I showed you that so you'll know where to stop with this axis. The up and down axis is called the y-axis. The axis that goes across is called the x-axis. You don't need those labels, but that is something that 5th graders are supposed to know. Now, this is a line graph, which means we are more interested in the lines than in the spaces between them. So that's very important. We need to label our y-axis. If we were to put a data point right here, it would mean 3 what? Well, on this graph for us, it will mean 3 hours of daylight in Alaska. This is not showing Alaska. Okay. This is not showing Michigan daylight. This is showing Alaska daylight. Those hours of daylight will need to be able to show the smallest amount, 3 3/4 or 3 hours and 45 minutes, and the largest amount and everything in between. So we need to be able to go from a little more than 3 all the way up to 22 at least. I counted these out. If we go by ones, each line can be worth a whole hour. So if I were to put a data point here, this would mean 3 hours of daylight in Alaska. So it is what that number on the y-axis means that tells me how many hours of daylight. You need to label all of the lines, not the spaces. So you need to trace each line and label the line on the line because you are showing how much time, how many hours of daylight each of these lines represents. I am not going to label them all. I am just going to trace them until I get up to 22. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You must label them. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. Here is the highest amount that I will need to go. You must make sure that you have all of those lines labeled in between 4 and 22. I am going to go and show you what happens next on the x-axis. So on the x-axis, these lines are each going to represent a different month. So in our chart, we are not going to start with January. We are going to start with June because we want to match up with the chart from the book. So this line is where we will show however many hours of daylight there were in June. So if there were 5 hours of daylight in June, I would put my dot here to show 5 hours of daylight in the month of June. There weren't, and we'll get to that in a moment, but right now you need to label all the lines for 1 year. So June, July, August, you may abbreviate when you get to months like August and September, just like we did in the chart. But you need to go all the way from June through July, August, September, October, November, December, January, February, March, April, May, and here you are again at June. Yes, I know there's more space on the x-axis. Don't worry, we are working with this graph all week. Right now we're just focusing in this section. Today, you are only responsible for 3 data points, 3 dots that show how much daylight there was in June and July and August. So in June, this is the line. You would go up this line until you got to 22 hours of daylight, and then you put a nice big data point. Make it look like a squashed bug. This is not a data point. That's a mistake. You need a nice large dot that cannot be mistaken. Then the line that represents July needs to have the data point put at 19 and a half. Well, 21, 20, 19. If I put the data point here for July, that means there were only 19 hours of daylight. That's wrong. If I put the data point here for July, that means there were 20 hours of daylight in July, and that's wrong. How do I show 19.5? Remember, 0.5, 5/10 means half. So the data point goes halfway in between the lines for 19 hours and 20 hours. Make sure you are on the line that says July. The last step is connect. As soon as you have 2 data points, you connect the first one to the second one. So really the only thing you have to figure out today is how to put your data point on the line for August, showing the correct amount of daylight, and connect your July data point to your August data point. That is all you are doing today. You may not do any more. I have found with 5th graders, if we have to fix anything, it's much easier to fix if you only have a few data points on the graph at first. Then when you are more confident of what to do, we can go add more. So you need to get June, July, and August data points on this graph. You need to have all of the x-axis labels from June to June as well as months. You need to have all of the y-axis labels from 1 to 22 as well as the words telling us this shows hours of daylight in Alaska. Thank you.